It was on 11th May that Mr. Simranjit Singh, one time a police officer of repute, now self-proclaimed leader of a small minority group propagating Khalistan, once again wanted to make headway and recalled the SGPC 1946 resolution, which called for Sikh state. And the votaries of non-existent, non-viable, impractical independent state of Khalistan has often been raised, and they have always quoted SGPC resolution of 1946 to buttress their agenda. The reality is they are neither aware of the contents nor the motive behind that resolution. I remember it was sometime, I was 4 or 5 years old, sometime in 47 or 48. My father was sitting with Bhai Veer Singh, Sardar Sundar Singh Mujithia, and other leaders, Sikh leaders. And Mr. Mujithia, and also Baldev Singh, then who became the defense minister later on, they remarked that despite our efforts, we have failed. And this resolution has not stopped Pakistan into coming into being. Now that I'd forgotten. When I read this statement, I once again recalled it, this memory. And then I found that it was on March 9, 1946. About 80 members of Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee. As a matter of fact, it was a combined common chamber of Teja Singh Samundri Hall in Amritsar. They met and passed a resolution urging Sikhs to strive for a separate Sikh nation. The current political affairs of the country have, of course, generated enough fear, and their ominous omens for all people, including Sikhs. That's what the resolution, and I'm reading the resolution. The current political affairs, that was a fight between the Muslims and the Hindus and the Sikhs. Muslims on one side, Hindus and Sikhs on the other. Killing was rampant. And in view of the revolutionary changes taking place in the country and awareness of the need to protect the Sikh identity, the SGPC declares the Sikhs as a nation. SGPC declares, not the British government, not the Indian government. This common home, the SGPC deemed is necessary to have a Sikh state, and the purpose is in order to preserve the Sikh shrines. The point was about Nankana Sahib and Panja Sahib, because Amritsar had already been declared to be a part of India, Punjab. And the purpose of the revolution was to preserve Sikh shrines, Sikh social practices, Sikh self-pride and respect, and the Sikh sovereignty and the future prospects of the Sikh people. Therefore, the House encourages Sikhs to strive towards the goal of establishing a Sikh state. The same hall on the 11th of May, this was on March 9, on 11th of May, Shromi Akali Dal passed a resolution this year, a retired IPS officer wanting Khalistan, and he asked other Akali groups also to join. And he reminded them of this resolution, which apparently he had no cognizance of earlier. And he said that the 1946 Sikh state resolution should be accepted by all the people and the government of India to support the idea of Khalistan. He even asked the audience for a hint to show their support for a separate state. But he was silent about the context. The 1946 resolution and this party's demand for Khalistan do not match the purpose now. When I was overhearing my father talking to the Sikh leaders, it came up that the purpose was to stop Pakistan into coming into being. Because if Nankana Sahib and Punjab Sahib was included in India, then Pakistan would have no existence at all, because more than half of the Punjab would be in India. If Sikh state comes into being, it will be Sikh state. As a matter of fact, I got a hint that the Congress party in fact supported this resolution for the sole purpose of thwarting the intention of Jinnah and other Muslim leaders. Prior to partition, the Sikh population was 13% of the Punjab province. That's it. People are not aware of this, that now they are more than 50%. That time they were 13%. And the Muslims were the majority population. Shomni Khalistan was created in 1920 to protect the political interests of the Sikhs. And Shomni Khalistan operated primarily as a Sikh extension of the Congress. Again, people are not aware of that it was a B team of Congress before Pakistani demand became part of the national discourse. So, at a meeting of Shomni Khalistan and Khalsa Darbar at the organization representing Sikh parties was formed in 1932 in Lahore. It was June 14. Now, Man would not refer to this, and other votaries of Khalistan would ignore it. On June 14, 1936, 11 years before this six-state resolution, a 19-point manifesto for election was presented. The first point was a fight for Puran Swaraj for India, as there were fears that the colonial government might declare Punjab a Muslim majority province. So they wanted the whole India to be one unit rather than the province-wise. And the Puran Swaraj was the same as the complete independence move, a resolution passed by the Congress party on the banks of River Ravi. So it was, as I said, an extension of Congress appeal. 4 years later, in February 1940, Shomni Akali Dal opposed the idea of Pakistan and declared its demand as a Swaraj. They wanted independence, they wanted self-rule, but no Pakistan. At the time, the relations between Shomni Akali Dal and Congress were breaking down the Pakistan issue, and Mahatma Gandhi wrote to Tara saying that you have nothing to do with Congress, you believe in the word power of sword, the Congress does not. This was Mahatma Gandhi doing. But leaders like Patel and others were in close contact, and Baldev Singh, who became the defense minister, was the conduit. The 3 resolutions were passed on Atari. They were the conference of Shomni Akali Dal in Atari. It was February 10 to 11, 1941. The 3 resolutions. First was opposing the idea of Pakistan. The second confirmed the demand for Puran Swaraj, complete independence. And the earlier Sikh conference on 8 April 1942 adopted the resolution, we will not allow Punjab to become Pakistan. That was the most crucial one. We will not allow Punjab to become Pakistan. As a matter of fact, the idea in some circles was that, okay, if Sikh state is clear, then Sikh state will become a protectorate of India with a special status, which was later on given to Jammu and Kashmir, but to be an integral part of India without any doubt. Now at the then there was an Akhand Hindustan conference in Delhi on October 8, 1944. Tara Singh said, Sikhs are the protectors of India, not of Punjab. Now look how Tara Singh, who later on opposed Congress, was clearly saying in October 8, 1944, Sikhs are the protectors of India. Punjab is ours. This is the state of Sikhs. Mahatma Gandhi cannot excommunicate the Sikhs from India. Even if the majority of the Hindus agree with Pakistan, there is no reason to impose it on the Sikhs. So the whole crux of the matter is that right from 1926 to 1946, all the resolutions passed were opposing Pakistan. And the next month, this was on October 8, in November, Tara Singh, along with other leaders, attended a Hindustan conference in Ludhiana. Even then they opposed the formation of Pakistan. So all the efforts were basically an attempt to ensure that the Pakistan doesn't come into being. Now with the possibility of strengthening Pakistan, many Sikh leaders began calling for a Sikh state to counter the demand for Pakistan. Maan and other votaries of Khalistan like Pannu and others who are rabidly pro-Khalistan, they forget this basic point. Although the word Khalistan has primarily been used since 1940, since 1970, yes, its appearance can be traced in the pamphlet dispute in 1942 by Veer Singh, who called the creation of a Sikh homeland, but as a part of India. There is always a difference between your state being a part of India and yet has a special meaning. On May 19, 1940, over 100 Sikh leaders gathered in Lahore. They gathered in Amritsar, yes, and formed the 21-member Khalsa Raj Committee. This was modelled after Maharaja Ranjit Singh's Sikh Empire. On June 6, 1943, National Sikh College in Lahore, there was issued a manifesto for Azad Punjab, or an independent Punjab. And the same month, Shromani Akali Dal passed a resolution calling for Azad Punjab. And Tara Singh said the idea of Azad Punjab was no different from the 17-point charter presented by Mahatma Gandhi on March 20, 1931. So, whatever Congress had done, they formulated the same, just gave it a veneer, a polish, a cover, and presented it. Then came July 1944. Sikh MLA Mangat Singh said, demand for Punjab, Azad Punjab, will arise after the formation of Pakistan, and if there is no Pakistan, then there is no demand. Then Azad Punjab will become part of India. Azad Punjab differs from Pakistan, but not in its features. So, a meeting was held, 500 Sikh leaders were there, and it was 1943, and a resolution was passed supporting the demand for Khalistan, Punjab state, Sikh state. Then 3 years later, 1946, SGPC resolution came, when the formation of Pakistan was almost inevitable. Now, unlike the 1946 SGPC resolution, the Khalistan demand arose in 70s in response to imagined perception that there was discrimination against Sikhs in independent India, and a lot of misconceptions were. In 1986, a Balwant Singh versus State of Punjab, the Supreme Court acquitted two Sikh accused of sedition, saying that Khalsa Zindabad is not a crime, and Raj Karega Khalsa is not a crime under sedition, because they are not inciting violence. Yes, if they fight that will kill, that's bad. So this decision allows Maha's party to participate in election and would not face charge under sedition. But the party is now on the fringes of Sikh politics. And if you see the February elections of Punjab, only 3.85 million votes in Punjab voted for this party. So it doesn't have a popular sanction. Minuscule party, which is just sound and fury, and gets oxygen from the publicity and media, biased media, dishonest media, is in fact there. And the resolution which they quote in the support of their agenda, as I've shown you the historical studies, right from 1920s to the end of the whole episode in 1947, whenever the Sikh leaders talked of Sikh state, were in fact making an attempt to say that Pakistan is an absurdity. So this was a ploy. It was an attempt, a camouflage attempt, to show the people and Pakistan leaders, look here, if you have that, then you have to give Lahore, you have to give Punjab Sahab, Hassan Abdal, that's Punjab Sahab, and Nankana Sahab to Sikh state. And you can well imagine what Pakistan would have been then. It would not have been there. So as a matter of fact, this resolution was patriotic in color, pro-India, pro-country. The biased people can always misrepresent the situation because people mostly are not aware of the history. And if they are aware of the history, then such leaders would stand exposed. The need is for the people to know what the reality is, to separate the chaff from the grain, and then come to a decision. Thank you.